I discovered my husband's mother had been systematically destroying my marriage by invading our home. And she told him that girl you married is just some random person. What really happened next exposed everything. I'm Emma, 28, female. And my mother-in-law has been systematically destroying my marriage by treating my own home like her personal kingdom where I'm just an unwelcome guest. When Michael first introduced me to his parents 3 years ago, I thought I was the luckiest woman alive. Linda seemed warm and welcoming, constantly telling me how happy she was that Michael had found someone so wonderful. She would hug me tight and say things like, "You're exactly what my boy needs." David, Michael's father, was quieter but kind, always asking about my teaching job and remembering little details about my students. But something shifted the moment Michael proposed. It was subtle at first, like how Linda's compliments started coming with tiny barbs attached. "Oh, Emma, you look so pretty today. That dress really hides your figure well." Or, "I love how confident you are, dear. Not everyone could pull off that bold makeup choice." Michael never seemed to notice these comments, and when I tried to point them out, he'd say I was being too sensitive. The first major red flag came during our wedding planning. Linda had very strong opinions about everything, from the venue to the flowers to my dress. When I chose a beautiful outdoor garden venue that Michael and I both loved, she made a face and said, "Well, I suppose it's rustic. I just hope it doesn't rain and ruin everything." She then proceeded to book the church where she got married, as a backup option without asking us first. The dress shopping incident still makes my stomach twist when I think about it. I had found the perfect dress, simple, elegant, exactly what I'd always dreamed of. When Linda saw it, she smiled that tight smile of hers and said, "It's lovely, dear, but don't you think it's a bit plain?" Michael's first girlfriend wore something so much more glamorous to their formal events. She then spent the next hour showing me pictures on her phone of increasingly elaborate dresses, each one completely wrong for what I wanted. But the moment that should have been my biggest warning came 2 weeks before our wedding. Michael and I were at his parents' house for dinner when Linda casually mentioned that she'd taken the liberty of changing our honeymoon reservations. "I just thought the resort you picked looked a bit budget," she explained, cutting her pot roast with precise movements. "So I upgraded you to the place where David and I went for our anniversary. It's much more suitable for a couple of your standing." I felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment and anger. "Linda, we specifically chose that place because it was within our budget and it's where we wanted to go." She waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, sweetie, don't worry about the money. We're happy to help. Besides, Michael deserves the best, don't you think?" Should have stood up for me then. He should have told his mother that our choices were ours to make. Instead, he just squeezed my hand under the table and said, "Mom, that's really generous, but next time, maybe check with us first." Next time. As if there should be a next time for someone to completely override our decisions. That night, as we drove home, I tried to explain to Michael how his mother's actions made me feel. "She's not respecting our boundaries," I said carefully, not wanting to sound like I was attacking his family. "I feel like she doesn't think I'm capable of making good decisions." Michael sighed and ran his hand through his hair. "She's just excited, Em. She wants everything to be perfect for us. She's been planning my wedding since I was probably 12 years old. But it's not her wedding," I said quietly. "It's ours." I know. I'll talk to her." But he never did. Or if he did, it didn't change anything. The pattern was set, Linda. Would overstep, I would feel hurt and frustrated. Michael would minimize it, and life would continue until the next boundary violation. After our wedding, I foolishly hoped things would get better. Surely once we were officially married, Linda would respect that I was now part of the family and deserved to be treated as an equal adult. Instead, things got exponentially worse. The spare key incident happened just 2 months after we returned from our honeymoon. Michael had given his parents a spare key to our new apartment for emergencies, which seemed reasonable at the time. What I didn't expect was Linda's very creative interpretation of what constituted an emergency. The first time I came home to find her in my kitchen, reorganizing my cabinets, I was so shocked I just stood in the doorway staring. She looked up from where she was kneeling in front of my spice rack and smiled brightly. "Oh, good, you're home. I was just helping you get organized. You had your paprika next to your vanilla extract. That just won't do." She gestured to the neat rows of spices she'd arranged alphabetically. "I also threw out some of those expired items in your pantry." "You really need to be more careful about checking dates, dear." My throat felt tight. "Linda, how did you get in?" "Oh, the spare key, of course. I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd pop by to see how you two were settling in." She stood up, brushing dust off her knees. "I noticed your windows were looking a bit cloudy, so I gave them a good cleaning, too. And I picked up those magazines that were scattered on your coffee table. I put them in a nice, neat stack." Those magazines had been carefully arranged by topic because was working on a lesson plan about current events for my fourth grade class. Now they were just a generic pile, and I'd have to sort through them all over again to find the articles I needed. That's very thoughtful," I managed to say, because what else could I say? She'd spent hours cleaning my home. How could I be angry about that without seeming ungrateful? When Michael came home and I told him what happened, he just shrugged. "That's Mom for you. She can't sit still." She probably thought she was helping. "But, Michael, she came into our home without asking. What if I'd been here taking a nap? What if we'd been, His cheeks reddened slightly. "I'll mention to her that she should call first." But the visits continued. Sometimes I'd come home to find my furniture rearranged to improve the flow of the room. Other times Linda would be there cooking dinner, having decided that I probably didn't have time to make anything decent after my long day of playing with children. She always said it with a smile, but the implication was clear. My job wasn't real work, and I wasn't capable of taking care of her son properly. The cooking comments were particularly painful, because I actually loved to cook. My grandmother had taught me when I was little, and trying new recipes was one of my favorite ways to unwind after dealing with 25 energetic fourth graders all day. But every time Linda helped by making dinner, she'd make little comments about how Michael probably missed having real home cooking and how some people just aren't natural in the kitchen. One evening, I came home to find Linda standing over my stove, stirring something in a pot. The smell hit me immediately. She was making Michael's favorite soup, the one she'd been making for him since he was a child. The one I'd tried to recreate several times but never quite got right. "Oh, Emma," she called out cheerfully when she heard me come in. "It's perfect timing. Just finishing up Michael's favorite. I know you've tried to make it before, but it's a bit tricky. Takes years to master the technique." I stood there holding my grocery bags, filled with ingredients for the special dinner I'd planned to make for Michael's promotion at work. I'd left school early and stopped by 3 different stores to get everything I needed for his favorite meal, or what I'd thought was his favorite meal. Apparently, I'd been wrong about that too. "I didn't know you were coming over," I said quietly. Michael mentioned he had some good news to celebrate, and I just couldn't let the occasion pass without his special soup. You understand? She ladled the soup into bowls with practiced ease. "I also picked up some of that bread he loves from the bakery downtown, the one near where he grew up. I know it's a bit of a drive, but some things are worth the effort." When Michael came home, his face lit up when he saw the soup. "Mom, you made my favorite. Emma, isn't this great?" I forced a smile and put my grocery bags away, shoving the expensive steaks I'd bought into the freezer. "It's wonderful," I said, and I hated how small my voice sounded during dinner. Linda regaled us with stories from Michael's childhood, each one highlighting how well she knew him and how much he depended on her. "Remember when you were 8 and had the flu?" she asked him. "You wouldn't eat anything except my soup?" "Emma, you should write down the recipe. You never know when it might come in handy." She never did give me the recipe. As the months went on, Linda's visits became more frequent and her comments became more pointed. She had an opinion about everything in our home, and she wasn't shy about sharing it. Our couch was too modern and wouldn't last. Our bedroom set was cheap-looking, and not what she'd expected Michael to choose. Even our choice of laundry. Detergent was somehow wrong. She'd actually replaced it with her preferred brand during one of her visits, but the comments that hurt the most were the ones about me personally. They were always delivered with a sweet smile and couched in concern, making them impossible to call out without seeming paranoid or oversensitive. "Emma, honey, you look tired. Are you getting enough sleep? Michael needs a wife who can keep up with him. Oh, Emma, you're wearing your hair down again. Have you considered a more professional style?" First impressions are so important, especially for someone in Michael's position. "Emma, dear, I noticed you've been eating a lot of bread lately. Just worry because Michael's always been attracted to women who take care of themselves." That last comment came during a family barbecue at their house. It was reaching for a dinner roll when Linda made her observation loud enough for Michael's aunt and uncle to hear. I pulled my hand back as if the bread was on fire, my cheeks burning with embarrassment. Later that evening, when we were driving home, I tried to talk to Michael about it. "Your mom made a comment about my weight today that really hurt my feelings." Michael frowned, keeping his eyes on the road. "What comment?" "The thing about the bread and how you're attracted to women who take care of themselves." He was quiet. For a moment, I think you might have misunderstood her. She's always been health conscious. She probably just meant it as general advice. "Michael, she said it right as I was reaching for food. In front of your family, it was humiliating." "Mom would never try to humiliate you on purpose. She loves you." I wanted to scream. Instead, I turned toward the window and watched the streetlights blur past. How could he not see what was happening? Was I losing my mind? Or was his mother systematically trying to make me feel inadequate and unwelcome? The pattern continued for months. Linda would make cutting remarks disguised as helpful suggestions, and Michael would dismiss my concerns or explain them away. I started to dread family gatherings and social events where she might be present. Worse, I started to second-guess everything about myself. Maybe my cooking really wasn't good enough. Maybe my hair did look unprofessional. Maybe I was gaining weight and Michael was too polite to mention it. My best friend Sarah noticed the change in me during one of our monthly coffee dates. You seem different lately. Stressed? What's going on?" Found myself telling her everything. About the surprise visits, the constant criticism, Michael's inability to see the problem. Sarah listened with growing incredulity. "Emma, that's not normal. Mother-in-laws can be difficult, but what you're describing sounds deliberate. She's undermining your confidence." "But she always seems so caring when she says these things." "Maybe I'm being too sensitive." Sarah leaned forward, her nurse instincts kicking in. Emotional manipulation often looks like caring on the surface. The fact that she always makes these comments when Michael isn't around or when he's distracted tells you everything you need to know. She knows exactly what she's doing. Hearing someone else validate my feelings was like taking my first deep breath in months. But it also made the situation feel more hopeless. If Linda was doing this intentionally, then all my attempts to win her over to prove I was good enough for her son were futile. "What should I do?" I asked Sarah. "You need to set boundaries. And Michael needs to support you, or this is going to destroy your marriage." I knew she was right, but I had no idea how to make that happen. Every time I tried to discuss Linda's behavior with Michael, he became defensive and protective of his mother. It was like I was asking him to choose between us, and I was terrified of what would happen if I pushed too hard. The incident that finally shattered my tolerance happened on a Tuesday in October. I'd been fighting a particularly nasty cold and had called in sick to work, something I rarely did. I spent the morning in bed, drifting in and out of sleep, grateful for the chance to rest and recover. Around noon, I dragged myself to the kitchen to make some tea and toast. I was standing at the counter in my pajamas, probably looking like a complete mess, when I heard a key in the front door. My heart sank as I heard Linda's voice calling out cheerfully, Emma, Michael, I brought lunch. I wanted to hide. I was sick, exhausted, wearing my rattiest pajamas. And the last thing I needed was Linda's critical eye cataloging all my shortcomings. But there was nowhere to go. She was already in the living room, and I'd have to walk past her to get back to the bedroom. "Oh, Emma," she said when she saw me, her voice full of exaggerated concern. "You look terrible, sweetheart. Are you sick?" "I have a cold," I croaked, my voice barely working. "I called in sick today." Linda immediately sprang into action, but not in the way I needed. Instead of asking if I wanted her to leave so I could rest, she began bustling around my kitchen, like a woman on a mission. "Well, no wonder you're sick. Look at this kitchen. When's the last time you properly disinfected these counters? And these dish towels, they're practically breeding grounds for bacteria." She started pulling cleaning supplies from under the sink. Supplies she'd apparently stocked there during one of her previous visits. "Linda, I'm really not feeling well. Maybe you could come back another day." She paused in her cleaning frenzy and looked at me with what I can only describe as pity. "Oh, honey, I can't leave you like this. What would Michael think if he came home to a sick wife and a dirty house? Men don't understand that we can't just stop taking care of things when we don't feel well." What happened next still makes me angry when I think about it. Linda spent the next 3 hours cleaning my home while I sat miserably on the couch, too sick and too stunned to effectively protest. But she didn't just clean. She reorganized everything. She moved my grandmother's antique china from the dining room hutch to a high shelf in the kitchen where it would be more practical. She threw away what she deemed clutter from my desk, including important school papers and a small succulent plant my students had given me that was apparently half dead anyway. She reorganized my bedroom closet, moving my favorite comfortable clothes to the back and bringing Michael's more formal clothes to the front. But the worst part came when she tackled my bedside table. This small piece of furniture held some of my most treasured possessions: a jewelry box that had belonged to my grandmother, a few books I was reading, and a small collection of handwritten letters my grandfather had sent my grandmother during World War II. These letters were family heirlooms, irreplaceable pieces of history that my grandmother had specifically left to me. When I woke up from a fever-induced nap on the couch, I found Linda in my bedroom, holding the wooden box where I kept the letters. "What's this old thing?" she asked, examining it with the same expression she might use for a piece of moldy cheese. "Those are letters from my grandfather to my grandmother," I said, panic rising in my chest. "They're very important to me." Linda opened the box and pulled out one of the yellowed envelopes. "These are ancient. And look how they're yellowing, probably full of mites or something. I should throw these out before they attract bugs." "No," said, more forcefully than I'd spoken to her ever before. "Those are irreplaceable. Please put them back." She looked, surprised by my tone. Then her expression shifted to that familiar look of patient condescension. "Emma, sweetheart, I know you're sentimental, but holding on to old papers like this isn't healthy. Michael doesn't need his home cluttered with dusty old memories from your family. You need to focus on building new memories with him." The fact that she referred to it as his home rather than our home hit me like a slap. But I was too sick and too shocked to process that fully in the moment. "Please just put them back," I whispered. She sighed as if I was being unreasonably difficult. But she did return the letters to the box and set it back on my bedside table. "If you insist. But you should really consider getting a proper storage unit for things like this." When Michael came home that evening, he found me crying on the couch. Linda had left about an hour earlier after making sure to point out all the improvements she'd made to our home. What's wrong? Are you feeling worse?" Through my tears and congestion, I tried to explain what had happened. How I'd felt violated and helpless watching someone else take over my space when I was too sick to defend it. How she'd wanted to throw away my grandmother's letters, while she'd referred to our home as his home. Michael listened, but I could see the familiar defensive expression creeping across his face. "I'm sure she didn't mean it the way it sounded. And she was just trying to help. You were sick, and the house was what?" I asked. He backtracked quickly. I just mean when you're sick, things can pile up. She was probably just trying to make you feel better by tidying up. She wanted to throw away my grandmother's letters. Michael, letters that are over 70 years old and completely irreplaceable. How is that helping me feel better? She didn't actually throw them away, though, right? Maybe she just didn't understand how important they were. I stared at him, this man I'd married, this man who was supposed to be my partner and protector. And I realized that he was never going to see what his mother was doing to me. To us. In his mind, his mother was a loving woman who sometimes got a little carried away with her helpfulness. He couldn't or wouldn't see the calculated nature of her boundary violations. That night, I lay awake long after Michael had fallen asleep, staring at the ceiling and wondering how we'd gotten to this point. I felt like a stranger in my own home, constantly walking on eggshells, never knowing when Linda would appear or what aspect of my life she'd decide needed her intervention. But more than that, I felt betrayed by the person who was supposed to have my back no matter what. Michael's inability to see what was happening was almost worse than Linda's behavior itself. At least Linda's motivations were clear. She wanted me to know I wasn't good enough for her son. But Michael's willful blindness left me feeling isolated and gaslit, questioning my own perceptions and reactions. Something had to change. I just didn't know how to make it happen without losing my marriage in the process. The breaking point came 3 weeks later. And it involved those precious letters I'd fought so hard to protect. I had spent the morning at school dealing with a particularly challenging parent conference, and I was looking forward to getting home and decompressing with a cup of tea and one of my favorite books. The moment I walked through the door, something felt wrong. The house was too clean too, organized with that artificial perfection that only came from Linda's visits. But more than that, there was a smell in the air, the harsh chemical scent of industrial cleaning products mixed with something else I couldn't identify. I called out tentatively, "Hello, Michael," but got no response. His car wasn't in the driveway, so I knew he wasn't home yet. I set down my purse and started walking through the house, trying to figure out what felt so off. The living room looked like a furniture showroom, every pillow perfectly placed, every surface gleaming. The kitchen was so spotless, it looked like no one had ever cooked in it. Even our bedroom had been improved, with the bed made so tightly I could probably bounce a quarter off it. It wasn't until I reached my bedside table that the full horror of the situation hit me. The wooden box that held my grandmother's letters was gone. I stood there for a moment, certain I was mistaken. Maybe Linda had just moved it somewhere else for cleaning. I searched the entire bedroom, then the whole house, growing more frantic. With each empty drawer and cabinet I opened, the box was nowhere to be found. When Michael came home 20 minutes later, he found me sitting on our bed, staring at the empty space where the box had been, tears streaming down my face. What's wrong?" "The letters are gone," I whispered. "What letters?" "My grandmother's letters. The box they were in. Everything. It's all gone." Michael's face went pale. "Are you sure? Maybe Mom just moved them somewhere safe?" I looked at him with complete despair. "Your mother threw away my grandmother's letters, Michael. The ones she wanted to throw away when I was sick. The ones I specifically told her were irreplaceable. She wouldn't do that. There has to be an explanation." But even as he said it, I could see doubt creeping into his expression. He pulled out his phone and called his mother while I sat there feeling like my heart was being carved out of my chest with a rusty spoon. "Mom, did you come by the house today?" I could hear Linda's cheerful voice through the phone, though I couldn't make out her words. "Did you see a wooden box on Emma's nightstand?" More cheerful chatter. "You threw it away." Michael's voice rose in disbelief. "Mom, those were Emma's family heirlooms." What I heard next, through the phone, was Linda's voice taking on that innocent, slightly confused tone she used when she was about to justify something terrible. "Oh, that old box. It was falling apart, sweetheart. I threw it in the garbage this morning. Emma never should have been keeping important papers in something so damaged. What if there had been a fire? Mom, you can't just throw away other people's belongings. Well, I didn't think they were that important. If they were really valuable, wouldn't she have kept them in a safety deposit box or something? Besides, Michael, you can't let Emma turn your home into a museum for her family's old junk. If you're married now, you need to focus on your future together, not cling to the past. Michael looked at me, and for the first time since we'd been married, I saw real anger in his eyes. Not at me, at his mother. When was trash pickup today? He asked me. Thursday mornings, I said, hope and dread warring in my chest. We both looked at the clock. It was Thursday evening. Letters were gone forever. Michael told his mother he had to go and hung up the phone. Then he sat beside me on the bed and pulled me into his arms while I sobbed. I'm so sorry, he whispered into my hair. I'm so sorry. Those letters represented more than just family history to me. They were a connection to a love story that had survived war, separation, and decades of marriage. My grandmother used to read them to me when I was little, telling me about how my grandfather would write to her about the small things he missed. Her laugh, the way she hummed while she cooked, the sound of her voice saying his name, were proof that real, lasting love existed, and they had given me hope during the dark periods of my own relationship. Now they were rotting in a landfill because Linda had decided they were old junk. She did this on purpose, I said through my tears. She knew exactly how important they were to me. She's been planning this since the day I was sick. Michael was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was different than I'd ever heard it, harder, more resolved. You're right. I've been making excuses for her, but you're right. She knew exactly what she was doing. I can't do this anymore, Michael. I can't live like this, never knowing when she's going to come in here and decide that some other piece of my life needs to be eliminated. I feel like I'm losing myself. She's not coming in here anymore, Michael said firmly. Tomorrow, we're changing the locks. I pulled back to look at him, searching his face for any sign that he might change his mind or backtrack. Are you sure? She's your mother, and you're my wife. You're supposed to feel safe and respected in your own home, and I've failed you. I've been so worried about keeping the peace that I forgot my job is to protect you, not protect her feelings. Night, Michael called his mother back and had the conversation I'd been waiting for him to have for months. I couldn't hear her side of it, but I could hear his, and it was everything I'd needed him to say. Mom, what you did today was completely unacceptable. No, this isn't Emma being dramatic. You threw away irreplaceable family heirlooms, ... I don't care if you thought they were junk. They weren't yours to throw away. This is exactly the problem. You don't get to decide what's important in our home, ... No, I'm not choosing Emma over you. I'm choosing my marriage over your need to control everything, ... The conversation went on for over an hour, with Linda apparently cycling through denial, anger, bargaining, and guilt in rapid succession. But Michael held firm, and when he finally hung up, I felt like I could breathe fully for the first time in months. What did she say? Asked. A lot of things. Most of them not worth repeating. He sat back down beside me and took my hand. But the important thing is that she knows things are going to change. She can either respect our boundaries or she can have very limited contact with us. And you're really okay with that? Michael squeezed my hand. I should have done this months ago. I love my mother, but watching what she's done to you, to us, that's not love. That's something else entirely. Changing the locks was surprisingly liberating. Michael and I spent Saturday morning at the hardware store, picking out a new deadbolt and door handle set. It felt symbolic somehow, like we were finally taking control of our own space and our marriage. Linda discovered the lock change on Monday morning when she tried to let herself in for one of her surprise cleaning sessions. I was at work, but Michael was working from home that day, and he told me later that he heard her trying the key multiple times before she started knocking loudly. When he opened the door, she was standing there with her hands on her hips, looking angrier than he'd ever seen her. "Why doesn't my key work?" she demanded. "Because we changed the locks," Michael said calmly. "You changed the locks without telling me. What if there's an emergency? If there's an emergency, you can call us, like any other normal person would." According to Michael, Linda's face went through several interesting color changes before she pushed past him into the house. "This is Emma's doing, isn't it? She's turning you against your own family. Mom, sit down. We need to talk." What followed was apparently the most difficult conversation Michael had ever had with his mother. He told her that her behavior toward me had been unacceptable, that she had violated our boundaries repeatedly, and that things were going to change immediately. Linda tried every manipulation tactic in her arsenal. She cried and said she'd only been trying to help. She got angry and accused me of being ungrateful and controlling. She played the victim and claimed that she was just a lonely mother who missed her son. When none of that worked, she tried to guilt Michael by bringing up everything she'd sacrificed for him over the years. But Michael didn't budge. He told her that if she wanted to continue being part of our lives, she needed to call before coming over, ask permission before touching or moving our belongings, and stop making critical comments about me. He also told her that she owed me a sincere apology for throwing away my grandmother's letters. "I will not apologize for trying to help that girl organize her life," Linda said, apparently dropping all pretense of sweetness. "Those letters were irreplaceable, Mom. They were the only things Emma had left from her grandparents. And now she can focus on the present instead of living in the past. She should be thanking me." Michael told me later that this was the moment he truly understood what I'd been dealing with. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a personality conflict. This was a deliberate campaign to diminish my place in his life. "If you can't apologize to my wife, then I think we need to take a break from these visits," he told her. Linda apparently laughed at this, a sharp, bitter sound. "You think you can cut me out of your life? I'm your mother, Michael. That girl you married is just some random person you met a few years ago. I've been here your entire life. That girl is my wife, and she's the person I chose to build a life with. If you can't respect that choice, then you're right. Maybe we do need to take a break." The conversation ended with Linda storming out, slamming the door so hard that our neighbors probably heard it 3 houses down when I got home from work that evening. Michael told me everything that had happened. I felt a complex mix of emotions: relief that he'd finally stood up to her, sadness that it had come to this, and anxiety about what would happen next. "How do you feel about it?" I asked him. Michael was quiet for a moment, staring out our living room window, honestly. "I feel like I'm seeing her clearly for the first time in my life. I keep thinking about all the times she did things like this when I was growing up, the way she treated my girlfriends, the way she interfered with my decisions about college and jobs. I always thought she was just being protective, but now I wonder if it was always about control. Are you okay?" "I think so. It's weird, though. I feel guilty for not standing up to her sooner, and I also feel guilty for standing up to her now. But mostly I feel relieved. I was so tired of walking on eggshells, trying to keep everyone happy." That evening, we ordered pizza and ate it on the floor of our living room, talking about everything and nothing. It felt like the first normal evening we'd had in months. Just the two of us, in our own space, without the specter of Linda's disapproval hanging over everything, for a few days. I thought that might be the end of it. Linda would realize she'd overstepped, apologize, and we could start over with clear boundaries. I should have known it wouldn't be that simple. Linda's next move was to recruit reinforcements. Over the following week, Michael received calls from his aunt, his cousin, and even his father, all expressing concern about the misunderstanding between him and his mother. The conversations followed a predictable pattern. The caller would start by saying they didn't want to get involved, then immediately get involved by suggesting that Michael was overreacting. Linda was just trying to help. She loved him so much. Family was the most important thing. Surely he could forgive a mother who just wanted the best for her son. David's call was the hardest for Michael to handle. His father had always been the peaceful mediator in the family, and hearing him advocate for Linda's position was difficult. "Your mother is heartbroken," David told Michael. "She says Emma won't even let her in the house anymore." "Dad, we changed the locks because Mom was letting herself in whenever she wanted." Emma came home sick one day to find Mom reorganizing our entire house without permission. I'm sure she was just trying to help. She threw away Emma's family heirlooms. Dad, letters from Emma's grandfather to her grandmother during World War II. They were irreplaceable. And Mom threw them in the trash because she decided they were junk. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. She threw away Emma's family things, important family things, things that can never be replaced. Another pause. I didn't know about that. I could see Michael's shoulders relax slightly. When he told me about this conversation later, his father was a reasonable man, and once he understood the full scope of what had happened, his perspective shifted. But Linda wasn't finished. When her flying monkeys didn't work, she decided to try a direct approach with me. She showed up at my school on a Friday afternoon, waiting by my car in the parking lot when I came out of the building. "Emma, we need to talk," she said, her voice tight with controlled emotion. My heart started pounding immediately, but I forced myself to stay calm. "Linda, if you want to talk, you need to call and arrange a time when Michael can be there too. This is between you and me. You've turned my son against me, and I want to know why." I looked around the parking lot, grateful that there were still other teachers and staff around. "I haven't turned Michael against anyone. I've just asked to be treated with respect in my own home." Respect. Linda's voice rose, and I saw a few people turn to look in our direction. "I've done nothing but try to help you, and this is how you repay me. It's by cutting me out of my son's life." "You threw away my grandmother's letters," I said quietly, "after I specifically told you how important they were to me." For just a moment, Linda's mask slipped, and I saw something cold and calculated in her expression. "Those old papers weren't worth keeping. You need to focus on your marriage, not cling to the past. They weren't yours to throw away." "Everything in that house affects my son's life. If you're going to be part of this family, you need to understand that his well-being comes first." I realized then that this conversation was pointless. Linda wasn't here to apologize or to find a way forward. She was here to establish dominance, to make it clear that she would never accept me as an equal partner in Michael's life. "This conversation is over," I said, unlocking my car door. "Don't you walk away from me," Linda snapped. "I'm not finished." "Yes, you are," I said, and I got in my car and drove home. That evening, I told Michael about the parking lot confrontation. He was furious that his mother had ambushed me at work, and he called her immediately to tell her that her behavior was completely unacceptable. The conversation was shorter this time, and louder. I could hear Linda's voice through the phone, shrill and angry, though I couldn't make out the words. When Michael hung up, his face was grim. "What did she say?" I asked. "It's a lot of things that I'm not going to repeat. But the bottom line is that she's not ready to accept that she did anything wrong. She thinks you're manipulating me and that I'll come to my senses eventually." "And what did you tell her?" "I told her that until she's ready to sincerely apologize to you and respect our boundaries, she's not welcome in our home or our lives." The next few months were difficult but peaceful. Linda made a few more attempts to contact us. Flowers delivered to the house with notes about how much she missed us. Care packages sent to Michael's office. Birthday cards that arrived weeks late with messages about family forgiveness. He didn't respond to any of them. Michael struggled with guilt and sadness about the situation. We went to couples counseling to help us navigate this new reality. Our therapist helped Michael understand that setting boundaries with a manipulative parent wasn't the same as abandoning them. And she helped me process the anger and hurt I'd been carrying for so long. Slowly, our marriage began to heal. The constant stress of Linda's interference, we were able to reconnect and remember why we'd fallen in love in the first place. Our home became a sanctuary again. Okay, place where we could be ourselves without judgment or criticism. The breakthrough came 8 months later on Michael's birthday. Instead of her usual elaborate celebration plans, Linda sent a simple card with a request to meet for coffee. No demands, no guilt trips, just a request. Michael was nervous about the meeting, but he agreed to it on the condition that it be in a public place and that he could leave at any time. I waited at home, anxious and hopeful in equal measure. When he returned 2 hours later, his expression was cautiously optimistic. "How did it go?" I asked. "She apologized," he said, and I could hear the surprise in his voice. "Not perfectly, and not for everything. But she acknowledged that she overstepped boundaries and that throwing away your letters was wrong. Do you think she meant it?" "I think she's realized that if she wants to be part of our lives, she has. To change, Dad's been working on her, and I think she's starting to understand that she pushed too far." We decided to try a gradual reconciliation with strict boundaries in place. Linda could visit, but only when invited and never with a key. She could offer advice, but only when asked. She could help with household tasks, but only with explicit permission and only in ways that we specified. It hasn't been perfect. There have been moments when Linda's old habits resurface. When she makes a comment that crosses the line or tries to take control of a situation. But now Michael recognizes these moments immediately and addresses them. And Linda has learned that crossing our boundaries has real consequences. The relationship will never be what Linda originally wanted. She'll never be the primary woman in Michael's life, and she'll never have the kind of control over our household that she once wielded. But it's become something healthier and more sustainable, based on mutual respect rather than manipulation and guilt. Most importantly, Michael and I have learned to present a united front. We make decisions together. We support each other's boundaries. And we never let outside pressure override our commitment to each other. Our marriage is stronger now than it was before this crisis, tempered by the knowledge that we can weather difficult storms together. Looking back, I realized that Linda's behavior was never really about helping or caring for us. It was about maintaining control and ensuring that no one else could take her place as the most important person in Michael's life. Once she realized that wasn't possible, she had to choose between accepting a smaller but still meaningful role in our lives or losing us entirely. She chose wisely, though it took her longer than I would have liked to get there. To anyone watching this who might be dealing with a similar situation, know that you're not crazy, you're not overreacting, and you deserve to feel safe and respected in your own home. Setting boundaries with difficult family members is never easy, but it's necessary for the health of your marriage and your own well-being. Don't let anyone convince you that keeping the peace is more important than standing up for yourself, 'cause a peace built on your silence and submission isn't really peace at all. And to the partners out there who might be struggling to see the situation clearly, your spouse isn't asking you to choose between them and your family. They're asking you to choose between healthy boundaries and unhealthy patterns. They're asking you to be the partner they need you to be. That's not too much to ask, and it's never too late to start. After listening to today's story, perhaps it has raised some new questions in your mind about the boundaries in your own relationships and how family dynamics can impact a marriage. Every day on Reddit, new experiences and moments create fresh stories that remind us that navigating family relationships is one of the most challenging aspects of adult life. And we are all human, trying to balance love, loyalty, and self-respect. If you enjoyed this story, feel free to share it with someone who might benefit from hearing about the importance of healthy boundaries. Thank you for your time, and don't forget to keep an eye out for more stories coming soon.